Diegos, and welcome to the Four Diegos Hot Topic. I'm Rodrigo Rodriguez, and with me today is Carlos Alberto Diego. We've got Warren Diego and Vinny Venezuela. Well, what a fantastic win it was in Doha when Australia beat Iraq 2-1. Two wonderful headed goals by Tim Cahill and Archie Thompson very late in that game. But what caught our eye was the interview after the game with Archie Thompson, pretty much on top of the world after a game, basically saying that the critics have been unfairly treating the Socceroos, and he wanted to shut a few people up, basically. The question, the hot topic today, Carlos, is, are the Socceroos too precious?
For me, look, I think that they probably act that way now and again. I was a little bit surprised by the after-match comments by the wonderful Mark Bosnich and the wonderful Robbie Slater. We love those two guys. I thought their critique of the game was pretty harsh on the players. I think they were saying that the performance was really, really poor. But in comparison to the game against Jordan, and even in comparison to many games that they've played in the last 6 months, I thought it was decent. Decent enough to win. I thought it was a decent enough performance to say that they were focused and they obviously had prepared well for the game. I was a bit surprised, and under that sort of umbrella of comment, I can think that maybe they are too precious, and maybe their complaints about the fact that they've been unfairly criticised might be justified. But it's hard to take when basically they perform as badly as they did against Jordan, and Arch comes out and says that. I think that probably does give us a perception that they might be a little bit precious.
Yeah, I don't know who the media manager is with the Socceroos at the moment, but when Archie puts his hand up to do an interview, I reckon he should look and say, Archie, we'll just use somebody else. Yes. Look, this is a classic Coaching 101 manuscript that Holger Ossick went to. We're under pressure. Let's develop a siege mentality. Let's choose an issue. We're all too old. They say we're too old. Post the signs up on the window. Everyone says you're too old. Play a few clips. Archie just forgot that the siren had sounded or the whistle had blown. The game was over and they celebrate the win because ultimately, there's two aspects to this, I figure. Everyone wants Australia to qualify for the World Cup. So the Bosniches, the Slaters aren't bagging them because they don't want them to qualify. They're making the point that at what point does the team regenerate? And to the credit of Holger Ossick in this game, there was some signs of that. The bringing in of Tommy Orr into the squad and him being the first substitution. Robbie Cruz definitely played well. Matthew Sporanovic even partnering Lucas Neal was a sign that there is that regeneration. We just want the boys to qualify. I don't care personally if they're 45 or 22. If we get to Brazil, we're all happy.
Look, I think people unfortunately do care about their age. I don't think they necessarily should. I think at the end of the day, it's about the football you play, and they're answerable when they play a bad game, and they've just got to cop it. And if you play a good game, you should be praised. I think Archie had a great game. He's had some good games for the Socceroos. He should have just ridden on the glory, on that wave of glory that he had then. It's a shame he sort of spat the dummy a little bit, but Archie's a great player. He's been good for the Socceroos. It's about staying positive now and not letting the negativity. That's what happened in South Africa in 2010, just before the tournament started. We don't want to go back. The other big thing with the Socceroos is the Australian football-loving public know how good they can play. They have raised the bar high for themselves. They've got to keep that bar high. Otherwise, they will cop it, and they're up for it.
But in many respects, Archie Thompson, you can almost forgive him a little bit in that he just scored probably the goal of his international career. He's got 3 in a row now after being dropped and picked by the previous coaches. It's clear that Holger loves him and Holger will give him a chance. Now, whether he's a bloke that you would start with and take to Brazil 2014 is another question. So you almost forgive him a little bit for maybe sort of seeming a little bit precious, but we also had Tim Cahill, who didn't make himself available to the media in the mix zone after the game. We also had Mark Schwarzer on the ground also shushing, putting his finger to his mouth and shushing someone. So I'm not sure whether there was anyone in the crowd, but I'm assuming that's got something to do with the media too.
Carlos, can I just confirm there was no one in the crowd?
But I think the point I'm making is there is it wasn't only what Archie said. There is this perception that the boys don't like the criticism, but I think with performances like Jordan and I don't think they deserve criticism for the game against Oman or Japan, but I think the game against Jordan really got people a little bit worried about the state and the psychological situation or psychological state of these players and also their attitudes. And then when Matty Mackay came out and said that their attitude was awful, in the lead up to the game against Jordan and also in the training camp, and I think Mark Schwarzer verified that also. Of course, people are permitted, I believe, to have an opinion about how they're going, and maybe, look, I don't think that they are precious, and I don't mind them using it for a siege mentality. If they win, they can build up all the walls they can. It doesn't worry me at all. But at the end of the day, they've got to be careful because they're professional sportsmen who get paid really well, and part of the deal is that they've got to perform, and it's a public thing. People are going to have judgments, whether it's media, former Socceroos, or fans.
Yeah, and I think I've got news for Mark Schwarzer. He is officially old, so we shouldn't actually, don't worry about the argument with him. But I think also, Carlos, they take away from the positives that come out of the performance. The positives with, Robbie Cruz, the positives with Matthew Spranovic, the positives with Tommy Orr and the other young players that came into the squad. They turn it around. They could actually go, well, you look at the team. There's some experienced players in there, but there's some new guys coming in there that perform well. So even the psychology around the comments is a little bit wrong because they only perpetuate that.
What did you make of Robbie Slater and Mark Bosnich's synopsis of the game after the game the other night? Did you agree with them? They said it was as bad a performance because Holger came out and said it was an excellent performance, and they said if that's an excellent performance, the guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think they were probably over the top in terms of being flat about the performance. You've got to realise that the way that this World Cup campaign's worked, Australia's had one home game against the best team in the competition, had to play 3 games over in the Middle East in terms of against those teams. The whole way that the whole qualification's been set up has put them against the 8 ball, and in hindsight they've had one poor game, they've had a draw and a win out of the other 2 games. If the middle game wasn't put in there, you'd be saying walking away with 5 points with 3 home games to come, you're in the perfect position to qualify. So they were a bit flat. I don't know, does it create news? I think news creates news.
But the question is, has the criticism been over the top, given the performance against Oman was a really courageous one in that heat, away from home, the performance against Japan, a courageous one where they should have won, the performance against Jordan was as bad as I've seen the Australian side for a long, long time, and of course now Iraq come from behind win.
In that context, it definitely is over the top, okay. Carlos, no doubt.
So they're not precious then?
No.
No, look, I actually think it hasn't, Carlos. I think the media... I'm going to stand up for my media friends here.
Have you got some?
Well, no, not really.
Friends or media friends?
It's the first time I'm feeling a bit giddy. It's the first time I've ever called myself the media. But I think Robbie Slater and Mark Bosnich are experts in the game. They've got the view that and the Socceroos weren't fantastic. They were okay. I actually think they had I was interested in their view compared to Holger Ossick's.
But Robbie Slater keeps on going on about the age of the team. I have no problem with the age of the team as long as they're performing and scoring goals and doing everything right. And the question, I think the players are thinking at the moment, well, have we done so badly that we deserve to be told that we're too old and we should retire?
The facts. Can I just say, the problem with the Socceroo team is even since the last World Cup, the media, and I'm part of them and I love them too, have been talking about how they're getting too old. So this theme of age has been going for 4 years, and it is frustrating, but you got to man up and you just got to move on and you just let your feet on the pitch do the talking.
I totally agree. But when you're a professional footballer, you hold yourself out, to media criticism. The fact that I thought Robbie Slater's response to Archie Thompson's was really, really good. I can't wait till Archie Thompson gets into the media because he will be the most forthright, although not totally always, being able to string a sentence.
I think that the issue with former players is there's almost this, the gentleman's agreement that you don't bag a former footballer, and the current footballers don't like it when the media guys who are ex-footballers are doing their job. And it's uncomfortable for some ex-footballers because the responsibility to media is to the listener or to the viewer, and not to the former players or their mates. And I admire someone like a Robbie Slater and Mark Bosnich for saying what they think, but they've got to be right too. And Robbie Slater, I think, focuses too much on the age and not on the performance. From the other night, I'm talking about. And in that situation, I think age is nothing. If you're performing like Mark Schwarzer is, no other Australian goalkeeper deserves to be in the place of Mark Schwarzer. He's performing. So he's 40 years old. So age is not an issue. It's the performance that's an issue.
Look, I think if you go through if you review the games that led up to the previous qualifications, there were always poor performances in there, particularly in, adverse conditions over in the Middle East against the teams we had to play against. But we got the job done at home. And our position in terms of qualification always looked better because it was home, away, home, away. This time it's been 3 away, 1 at home, 3 to come. But, Carlos, I think the bigger picture, and I genuinely think this, the bigger picture is there has to be some regeneration sometime. And I know performance-wise, and I'm not saying you get rid of them for the sake of it, but at some point, some of the files of these players has to be stamped closed, and we have to move on, because otherwise we'll be left with a dearth of inexperience, players that are needing to play above their experience level. And I would hope that the template of Tommy Orr, Robbie Cruz, and those players coming in, Matthew Sporanovic, as the model for that regeneration is occurring, because otherwise we qualify, we come out of qualification for the next World Cup, we go into an Asian Cup qualification. These players could roll on forever, almost saying...
But if they're performing, though, and they're the best performers, I actually don't have a problem with that.
You're not going to knock Bresciano back because he's old.
Yeah.
If he's firing, you put him in. You're not going to knock Harry Kewell back if he's at the top of his game.
And the pressure on them, Vinny, is to perform. Like Archie Thompson came out and talked it up the other night because he scored 3 and 3. Now, I say to Archie, you've got to keep on scoring now because you've got to, people are waiting for you to fall over because you're having a crack at them for criticising you. So, ultimately, I don't mind. If Archie keeps on scoring, he could be our number 1 striker in Brazil in 2014.
But Lucas Neal would wheel himself into the ground in a wheelchair and still convince himself he's the best central defender for Australia.
But it's not him, it's Holger Ossick who's got to pick that, who's got to decide where he's playing well enough.
I like your regeneration plan. I mean, I understand what you're saying, you pick your best players, but there needs to be a plan, a succession plan, and there needs to be evidence of that. And, seeing Tommy Orr back into that team, Sporanovic, that was good. But I want to put this hot topic to bed, guys. I want you, Vinny, now to tell us, are the Socceroos too precious?
Sometimes just a little bit, but not always.
Warren, you said it before.
No.
You don't think they are?
No.
What about you,
I don't think they are, even though now and again, after a big win or a moment when they haven't played well and all the focus on them, they say the wrong thing. I think that's what's happened. If you look at their qualifying, the qualifying games so far, if you really weigh it up in the away games and the difficult situations now and again and going down to 10 men, I don't think they deserve to be as criticised as what people are saying, even though the focus is on age when you're not performing.
I actually think they're becoming precious. I actually think they are becoming precious. And Archie, just do what you did last week, the other day. Score. Keep scoring, and we love you anyway. But just to the team, you keep playing, and how fickle we are. We'll be back on board pretty soon. Well, that's it for this week's interesting hot topic. Until next time, ole!